Hey everybody, welcome back to the JPU show. If you're new, do me a favor before we proceed. Hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on future episodes. And if you're a pro at this already, if you're already subscribed, welcome back. My name is Badr, and I've got my co-host Blythe Brumleave here with me. Hey Blythe.
Still the same BB.
Blythe, we've got an interesting topic today. Instead of doing our usual topic where we pick a topic and give advice and it's helpful tips and anecdotes from our personal podcast process and careers, etc., we are doing something a little different. We are bringing up a topic for, I won't say debate, because we know who would win in debates. That'd be you easily. But for discussion and conversation is an interesting one. I think it's also topical, considering that artificial intelligence is a big talking point today. I think I kind of buried the lead there. But we are discussing, would you use AI voice or video clones for your podcast? And you've got a story to set up first, and then we'll get into it. So I turn it over to you.
Yeah, so I think a lot of folks that you've been using AI transcription tools, chapter markers. There's lots of really cool technology that is, has the buzzword of AI, but it really is just helping the, sort of editing process. Well, one of those bigger tools, Descript, I think we all know of with Descript, is that you can do a voice recording inside of their software, and then you can type out some words, and it will sound pretty close to you recording an episode. Well, this is taking on a slightly different approach where it is completely new content, where The Verge has this article where they say an AI version of Al Michaels will deliver Olympic recaps on Peacock. And so NBC has AI generated voice who could create nearly 7 million customized recaps during the Paris Olympics. So everybody, well, if you're in sports, not everybody. If you're in sports, you probably know of the legendary broadcaster Al Michaels, but he's going to be giving, and this comes from the Verge's article, it says he's going to give daily personalized recaps of the Paris Olympics on Peacock. Here's how it works. To set up what NBC is calling your daily Olympic recap in the Peacock app, you'll provide your name. The AI voice can welcome the majority of people by their first name, probably not our names, I doubt that. But NBC says in a press release that it could pick up to 3 types of sports that are interesting to you and up to 2 types of highlights. For example, top competition or viral and trending moments. Then each morning, you're going to get your Michaels-led rundown using your name. So I'm going to set up the screen share so we can hear the version of this, because at first I was like, that's interesting. But I'll let y'all be the judge.
Ty Kelly, welcome to your daily Olympic recap, your personal rundown of yesterday's most thrilling Olympic moments. Since you're a swimming fan, let's head right to the pool. Team USA secured a stunning victory in the men's 4x100 meter medley relay, smashing the world record. Over at the diving venue, Krista Palmer showcased resilience and skill, overcoming past knee surgeries to qualify for the women's springboard final. Meanwhile, a tough break for Canada's Pamela Ware as a failed final dive scored 0, ending her bid for the final. Check out these highlights from yesterday's action.
Wow. Yeah, you could have, if you had not, I think, prefaced that, I probably would have been like, oh, yes, Al Michaels.
Yes, exactly. It sounds very good.
So Al Michaels he's still alive. And
yes, of course he's still alive.
I'm just saying, maybe someone out there is like, oh, I just want to get that point across.
God, he's still alive.
He's still alive. And he, I'm assuming he's willing. Has he said anything about it himself? Is there any quote from him in that?
There isn't a quote from him. It looks like, though, that it was Al Michaels working in participation with NBC, because they go on to say the voice was trained using Michaels' appearances on NBC, according to the press release, and the experience was built in-house. NBC Universal's John Jelly, interesting name, tells The Verge in a statement, our in-house Peacock team of engineers, product managers, and data scientists developed a proprietary process to integrate, optimize, and validate state-of-the-art language model and voice synthesis technology to create this experience. So obviously Al Michaels had to be a part of this process. I doubt that they went through and like just added something like this to. He's a pretty big broadcaster. This maybe, you know, you might be swindled a little bit if you're like on the lower tier, but I doubt somebody of Al Michaels' stature is just going to have NBC rip his voice off without, you know, ever giving that kind of permission. Slightly related, like Bruce Willis, who's, you know, going through some serious health issues, battling, I think, dementia, but has alternative, you know, on the side, he has also licensed his voice and his likeness to other AI companies, you know, kind of clearing the path in the future for, you know, movie companies, TV shows, commercials, to use his voice and likeness in future productions where he just doesn't have sort of the mental capability or physical capability to do that anymore. Al Michaels, on the other hand, is, from what we know, a willing participant in this, and he doesn't have to sit back and do these recaps now. He can just sign off a licensing deal for his voice and his likeness, and NBC can now create this, you know, thousands and thousands of personalized content for anybody. You know, thousands and thousands of people. Do they use the Peacock app? I would hope so, maybe. But you know, however much the user base over on Peacock is, which I imagine for the Olympics, this feels like a really good test run or a really good experiment. It's something that really piques my interest.
I think
I don't know if it's a scary or like an exciting way, because like Al Michaels, if you think about it from his perspective, he doesn't have to read all of these recaps. He can just collect the check and sit back.
And I okay. My initial reaction, and I guess I should preface it that Blythe mentioned this yesterday as we were kind of show prepping. Actually, I don't know if we had decided that we were going to talk about this, but I did not watch the video. I think you had just told me about it. I kind of reacted, and we were like, you know what, let's say this for the podcast. And so my initial reaction is from a proof of concept, as someone that enjoys, you know, playing around with tech, that is pretty cool. That it's apparently gotten much better, you know, AI, like that was seamless. I'm saying just from a proof of concept, can it be done? Like, I'm like, oh, wow, that's pretty cool. But then my next question is, I guess, why it kind of comes to it, but it's also like they couldn't find anyone else to read these other like prompts and recaps. But I mean, that could have been jobs for other, I guess, up and comers that are trying to break in the industry, that are looking for their opportunity. That kind of feels like just stealing opportunities from, you know, someone else. But I mean, you know, like, then at the same time, it's like, well, you know, more power to Al Michaels for I guess monetizing his voice, even though that kind of feels weird to say. So I'm conflicted. Is my initial reaction? It's intrigue, but also like now the other questions of like, why not just get someone else to do it? I get Al Michaels is a signature voice. I would feel like you would want to save him for like the main events and the big stuff. So yeah,
he will be, and he's not doing these little, you know, he's not doing these little recaps.
Sure, but then why not give it to someone else?
Because you got to pay him a salary. That's why. Alternatively, I would say though, that the in-house team of engineers, product managers, and data scientists all got jobs from this. So just because, I mean, let's be real. Whoever is reading these kinds of updates, whether it's inside of a local sports station or a local news station, they're getting paid peanuts on the dollar. They're already overworked, and they probably don't want to be doing this either. That is, I will argue on the other side of it, though, that reading these kinds of breaking news things is how historically a lot of folks have gotten into sports broadcasting. But all industries change, all roles change. And I would argue that you should be spending that time instead of trying to, you know, get a job making, you know, $10 an hour at a local sports station, hoping that you get 20 hours a week, start a podcast, start a YouTube channel, and then you can get your experience there. You can read your recaps there. That's what I would say that the shift should be happening, which it probably already is happening, because a lot of creators are just going to direct. So I think it's a philosophical argument on one end, but then on this end, it sounds really good. And I
No,
think
from
that
a
the fact that it sounds really good is scary to current
yeah,
creators.
it's definitely worrisome, and I think we go down a deeper rabbit hole of this whole discussion. Not like we all haven't heard both sides, talk about these points and really kind of go into some of these points that we were bringing up. But let's bring it back to our topic for today, which is: would you use one for yourself on your own I can't even finish saying it because I'm seeing you smiling, and I already know your answer. But I guess, and I'm posing this also to our listeners too. They can comment and write us and let us know what they think. But would you use a AI voice or video clone of yourself for your own podcast or show?
1000%. No. I will say
That's the clip right there. Sure.
It has certain use cases.
Okay.
And with those use cases, you have to think of that in mind. Like, I have specifically told myself, I do not have the bandwidth. I do not have the capacity to cover. I host a logistics podcast. I do not have the bandwidth to cover all of the logistics stuff that's happening every single day, even every single week. And this is all a bunch of ifs. If I could own the process, if I could monetize the process, if I could, be the license holder to that content, 1000%, I'm doing it every time. I would start up a news-based logistics podcast tomorrow, in order to, capture that part of the market, because there is still more work that has to be done. There, you have to do the research, you have to write the show notes, you still have to do all of those things, and it's still your voice. Now, I would argue that a lot of this is a highly advanced tool.
Sure.
And the NBC has also said that they have a team of editors. So those team of editors, nobody's losing jobs. They're just migrating. Jobs evolve. Like, that's, my thesis around just the entirety of AI and like people freaking out about it. You have to move where the market goes, and you have to skate to where the puck is going. And so in this particular instance, I think that it's smart on NBC's part. I think it's smart on Al Michaels' part, to be able to utilize his years and years of work to get an extra revenue stream, and then to give the content that people are looking for, give a resource to them that they can be able to get that personalized update from a sports broadcaster that they deeply respect. And I think that this model could really be used in a variety of different formats. I mean, just imagine, like, on the local level, if you have these local journalist teams who, there's a lot of money in news, a lot of money in news, but the way that news is monetized is rapidly evolving. Think of like your local journalist team that is looking to do a local news broadcast every single day on a shoestring budget, on limited amounts of time. I think that this could be a huge resource for them, in order to provide that kind of content to the audience that is seeking it out. Now, I do think that there are going to be some bumps in the road of what you need to be cautious about. Like, you don't want to sign your likeness and your voice away to anybody. Like, obviously NBC is a somewhat mostly credible company. But outside of that, you don't want to think about, just signing it to some, stranger behind the computer screen or some investment firm or something like that. You don't want to do that because you don't know what they're going to use your name and your likeness for in the future. But I would sign up for this right away. I would not do it for more of like, I keep going back to my NASA episodes because I'm working on them right now. So they're really fresh in my mind, and there's something I'm really excited to work on. That's not something that I would give to AI. That's something that I would want to do myself. But a quick news bite that's less than a minute long, you're keeping your audience entertained and engaged, and you're keeping them up to date with all of this news and transparency. That's one thing that I have liked about this, is that, we showed you that clip and it says immediately under the clip, here's an example of Peacock's Olympic recap led by the AI generated Al Michaels voice. In the video feed itself, it says it's AI generated. That, to me, like, you're disclosing that it
Sure.
is. It's still providing value. I think it's up to the audience, to determine if they want to, still engage with that value or not, or if they skip it altogether. I think people should be taking content experiments. This is a great content example of looking at where the puck is going and deciding if you want to skate there or not. I think that I personally would sign up for it for specific use cases, and provided that I control it and I can make the money off of it, or if I can get the engagement off of it. But I get the feeling that, even when we were talking about this last night, I knew you would say no, because you're just the creative purist. Bless your heart.
I'm
over here
say
the capitalist crazy person. I just want to make money and go on vacations.
I think that's what makes our show and dynamic so good. We got a little bit of both. And yeah, I've definitely would not. My answer is a clear no. And I think it's something to the effect that I mentioned earlier today. I mean, our listeners wouldn't know, but and maybe this is strictly from my, I'm speaking from my lens and my show in mind, just thinking podcast wise, my listeners can go find any of the information I share, especially if it's just me recapping news. They can go find that on any other outlet, whether it be a random Instagram profile, on Twitter, the website, wherever. But they come to me for my take, my nuance, the relationship that we have, the small things that I don't think AI is capable of, my inflections, the voices, the phrases I use. And now I'm sure that could be trained. That will probably be
it will
here
be
in the near future. But to me, that's just soulless. People are coming for my genuine, sometimes on the spot takes, and for that relationship and that trust that we as podcasters have built with our listeners. I mentioned, there is a intimacy to podcasting that people are literally putting you in their ears. I think there's a trust there. And I think if I was to ever toy with the idea of using AI video clone, like I would obviously, have that disclaimer. And but I don't know. I'm thinking like, okay, like let's say I was open to the idea, what would I use it for? And I think ad reads, I don't think there's much soul there to ad reads, or especially like a simple one. But for me, I kind of try to approach ad reads in a creative way. So that does take me, putting a little bit of myself into it.
Intros, outros, commercial breaks. I mean, there are use cases. Now, what you're talking about as far as like, I think where it bothers you in your soul is the content that you love creating that requires that nuance, that does require that insight, that years of building up that knowledge. That to me is never going to go away. And that to me is also the sweet spot of where creators should be moving to. But there is a strong demand for this kind of quick content that you can just find out, water cooler information. I'm driving in on the way to work. I'm brushing my teeth. I want to know what happened last night at the Olympics, because I'm not watching 12 hours of footage. I want to know what's most important to me, that's personalized to me. That to me is a winner. Frankly, I heard about this ahead of time. Or, we talked about it last night. I was listening to it on a show. I had not heard that audio. Now that I hear the audio, I'm sold. I'm sold.
I guess I have such a close relationship with my listeners, especially like the patrons. Like, I know that they appreciate the work I put in, and maybe they would appreciate like, hey, he's using tools smartly, and I guess maybe I'm also coming from it that in the art world and what my podcast covers, like there is a negative connotation when it comes to AI, especially like AI voice and voice clones, and
people are going to be left in the dust.
Yeah, comic books is a different breed. All right. Every attempt so far at AI finding its way into comic books so far has been met with hella pitchforks. The vocal outcry from artists that and we're talking about drawing, right? Like artists that this is their life. This is where they've spent, years perfecting. People appreciate the process.
But I have heard the complete opposite, because you have graphic designers, you have other artists out there. I mean, they're not comic book specific, but I work in marketing. I work in a lot of online media, and you have graphic artists and illustrators that can use these kinds of tools to speed up the monotonous part of their job, to where if, there was one designer that was talking about how he came up with all of these different mock-ups. He's spent his entire life as a graphic designer, and this using an AI tool helped him cut out 5 hours from this one part of this job, and it helped him create more because he was using this tool. And so I think when we talk about AI, when we talk about, I think a lot of folks just see it as their job is just going to immediately be replaced. Anybody who has used Grammarly, or anybody who has used, a lot of different, AI tools that exist right now and have existed for years, knows that those things are still buggy. You still have to evolve some of your process. We're not, both of us aren't hand transcribing our show notes or hand transcribing episodes anymore. We don't have to, press play, type out what was said, press pause, hit play again. We don't have to do that over and over again because an AI is doing that for us. And so for AI, for creatives, I know that people battle with this, but AI is great in those types of instances where it's repetitive tasks that you don't necessarily want to do, and that you can spend more time on doing the things you genuinely enjoy because you're spending less time hand transcribing episodes. They're typing out 1,000 words a minute to try to be able to get the same kind of tech advantage as if you were to just upload a file into Otter and get the entire thing. And so this scary boogeyman of AI, like creatives, you need to get over it. I frankly think that you need to find ways to use, and I hate even using like the umbrella term of AI, because if you use spell check, if you use social media, if you use Google search, all of those are artificial intelligence. All of them are. Picking a flight that you're going to fly on, checking out an Instacart, ordering Uber Eats. All of those have some kind of artificial intelligence attached to it. So get rid of the idea that like AI is the boogeyman. And there are, and I would think realistically accept that there are absolutely great use cases that exist in the world of creatives right now where you can create more and then also take advantage of some of these tools that get rid of the monotonous. To go back to the video, Al Michaels is not going to be recording a video for Jenny every single day based on her custom Olympics coverage that she wants to see, but using years of his work to train a tool to make this video for Jenny, she might really actually enjoy it. And that might be easier for her day. I will tell you right now, I wish that there was a podcast that existed that once a week I could get everything that happened with the Jaguars. Once a week. I don't want to listen to daily radio. I don't want to wait around for certain podcasts to drop an episode once a month talking about the team. I just want to stay updated regularly. If this existed for the Jaguars, I would sign up yesterday.
I mean, look, you make a good point about, I won't act like I'm a absolute, like, a purist where I'm not using some of the tools that you mentioned to like get rid of the monotony or think. Well, I mean, what's the AI capabilities in Riverside?
You have the marking of the clip, you have the transcription, you have the editing features.
Sure. And yeah, and I will go on record. I absolutely adore those tools, the things that don't really matter, that, like the listeners aren't seeing, like they're not really seeing any of that. They don't care about the behind the scenes. They want, but to me, like anything I'm putting out where it's like my, where my opinion, you know what I'm saying? Like, or where I have to be different. Face front. I think that's, yeah. So I don't know. Podcasting, all we've got is our voice. And for me, I guess I'm a little weary about like replicating it with AI. I think the only use case I would consider it is maybe like a very simple ad read. And that's only if I didn't approach it from a creative angle. And normally I do.
Well, I agree with that largely for the type of content that you genuinely want to make. But if you don't want to make 12 different variations of an ad read, that is a tool that could easily be used by an AI system like this. Creating news updates, a very short clip. That is something that is very applicable to an AI use case like this. That's sure. What I'm more referring to is use these tools to maximize your, creator livelihood. And then you can spend more time on the content that really like fuels your soul. Like I would never take my NASA episodes and put them into this. That sure. would never happen. But if I could make a daily logistics news 2-minute clip that I could put out to my audience every single day, I think my audience would find value in that, as long as it sounded like me, as long as I was transparent that this is AI generated. It would be a really interesting use case in order to try that out. I would love to try it out from that specific use case, which is, I think, where people get a little bit more caught up with the, should I use AI or should I not use AI? There are specific use cases where it makes a ton of sense to do. And I think that this is one of them.
You mentioned like using whatever AI to produce 12 ad reads. As a listener, if I know that, it's like, well, if they didn't care to read this, why the hell should I even care to listen to this ad? Like skip. And I think if you run into I think it also runs into it being a gray area where it's like the AI technology, especially for a video clone or AI voice, will get so good. Well, now, like, I think that trust, like that trust that comes with like that podcasting and that intimacy I was talking about comes into question, where it's like, well, am I listening to Blythe for real, or is this AI? Like I don't want to.
Well, that's where the disclosures come from. I think as long as you are upfront and honest with your audience, that's where I think that the line is sort of drawn in the sand. That you need that should absolutely
for sure
be a requirement, that if you use it, you let your audience know, and you let the audience make the decision on if they find this kind of content useful, because you still have to write it. You still have to, even if you this magic AI, we mentioned earlier that they have a team of editors that are reviewing this content before it ever gets pushed out. That is still a part of the process that doesn't go away. So you still need to make sure that the information is accurate, that you're being honest with your audience, and then you're letting them decide on what kind of content that they're going to engage with you on. Now, if you were just taking your voice and throwing it out to any company and letting them do whatever, yes, I agree that that's an insane breach of trust that you're probably only going to do if you're not worried about longevity as far as your creator career is concerned. But if you're upfront and honest and you're doing it for specific use cases, 1000% sign me up.
I think I'm gonna go and pose a question to my listeners. Like, if my listeners were like, "Hey, Badr, we are absolutely cool if you using AI voice and video clone, I will start churning out 2 episodes a week." But until then,
that's different. That is, we just laid out the argument. It's not going to be coming to replace.
I know. I'm just getting underneath the skin. I think there is a middle ground. I think you bring up a lot of good use cases for AI. I think you bring up a lot of good instances of us currently using AI in the broader scope in our everyday lives to get rid of the monotonous task, which I'm all for. I think that is what I want to use that technology for, is getting rid of the things that slow me up, that aren't fulfilling me creatively. I'm still a little skeptical about, replacing it myself in a larger way.
What did we just add? A new integration today that if we finish editing a YouTube video, that we can drop it in a Dropbox folder and it automatically uploads to YouTube. That's AI.
2 thumbs up. All right, 2 thumbs up on that. But anything, I think, involving me being in front of a camera or, sharing my voice out with the world, I'm still a little skeptical. That's it. That's where I'm
So if Marvel came to you and said, we want to use your back catalog to create a series of commercials to promote a new series that's coming out soon, you would say no?
I'm right here. Hire me. Like, I'm right here. Don't get rid of the person. I'm right here.
I don't know. Maybe you're going out of town for a few weeks and they need you this week.
I will be back in a week, or I will.
So you just gonna miss the check. You're gonna miss it. Bye.
Look, I think I'll go close it out on the point you made, where it really does come down to your audience and your listeners. And I think, being upfront and transparent and using it where you can. Let's leave it up to our listeners. All right. This is part of the show. We're wrapping up, but we invite you to the conversation. Let us know what you thought about this episode, some of the points we made. Would you personally use AI voice or video clones in your future podcast? What type of AI technology you currently use to get rid of the monotonous tasks? Do you have tools that you recommend that you currently use that save you time and energy and reinvigorate your creative spirit, like Blythe was saying? Let us know in the comments of the YouTube video if you're watching on YouTube. And if you're listening on audio, whether it be Apple Podcasts, Spotify, you can send us a direct text message using the Buzzsprout fan mail feature in the show notes. There should be a link for that in the show notes. Let us know what you thought. We'd love to hear your thoughts on this one. And if you want us to do more episodes like this where it's a little more open to conversation and debate, let us know that too. Thanks so much for hanging out. Blythe, you've been great. And let's go ahead and wish our listeners a good night. Peace, y'all.
Yeah, I can't replace that.
Actually, apparently it could, but it wouldn't mean it. I mean it. Thank you so much. Bye, y'all.